With 2.5 decades at the Weather Network, Chris St. Clair did more than just deliver the forecast. He tracked and reported on the storms and events that change lives from coast to coast to coast in this very weather-dependent country of ours. He details some of those in his new book called Weather Permitting: 25 years of ice storms, hurricanes, wildfires, and extreme climate change in Canada. And Chris St. Clair joins us now. Here's the pride of Kingston, Ontario, joining us in the studio. Great to see you.
It's nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
Everybody, I think, probably wants to know, since we're all experts on the weather, we experience it, but you've made a living at it. When did the moment come when you thought, this is how I want to make my living?
You know, it's funny, because I talk about it in the book. When I was young, I had a fascination with media. I loved listening to the radio. I listened to, Howie Meeker hockey games. When I was 10, 11 years old, I would dial in WCBS radio in New York and listen to Walter Cronkite talk about the Apollo 8 mission at Christmas time when they went around the moon and came back. But I remember watching Vern Rodenizer was the local weatherman in Halifax.
There's a great name.
And I remember watching him, and that was back when they did weather with a piece of chalk, much like Percy Saltzman did in Ontario. And I actually have these moments that I remember standing beside a chalkboard writing with the chalk. And so I think in the back of my mind, it was always there. Now,
you, as you pointed out, you're from Halifax originally, on the water, lots of weather events. Did that have something to do with all of this as well?
I had a fascination. My favorite kind of weather has always been fog. There's something about fog that I absolutely love. In the book, I talk about storms. When we were kids, my parents would take us out to Peggy's Cove and we would watch, the waves crash against the breakers. I don't recall having this fascination that this is what I was going to do then, but I always did like the weather.
Now, you could have written an entire book which just focused on some of the fascinating stories that you've covered over the years, but you actually get a little bit up there on your soapbox and start talking about climate change in the book as well. And I wonder when the moment came when you were covering yet another natural disaster, when the sort of penny fell for you on that.
Yeah, climate change is something that I'd read about. I'm a voracious reader. I'd read about climate change. I remember being at a conference and David Phillips was there, and he was talking about climate change in a rather abstract sense. And I cornered him with a couple of questions that I had, but it was the ice storm in 1998 and the level of widespread devastation and the sheer numbers of people who were impacted by that is when I thought, if this is the net result of it, and these things are going to become more frequent and widespread and ultimately more severe in their nature, this is serious and this needs to be talked about.
Right. Now, anybody who was here at that time will never forget that ice storm. That was absolutely unprecedented. But that's 25 years ago already. So you may want to remind people a little bit of what happened there.
Well, the ice storm, it happened just after the holidays. It involved really from Kingston eastward to Atlantic Canada. And we got into a weather pattern that very cold air circulated down the St. Lawrence River Valley, and the natural topography of that area was conducive to locking this cold air. It's dense, it sat near the surface, and then it was overridden by this very warm layer of tropical air from the Gulf of Mexico, and it started to rain on the Monday, and the rain from the warm air fell into the cold air and became freezing rain. So it turned to ice on everything that it made contact with. But it rained Monday, and then it rained Tuesday and Wednesday, and by the time we got to Thursday, millions and millions of people were without electricity. People were dying. Livestock was dying en masse. There was huge devastation to the forest. Quebec, Eastern Ontario, most of northern New York, New Hampshire, and Vermont were all without electricity. And it took until Friday for the freezing rain to finally end, and it had left a healthy inch of ice covering everything.
Here's how you describe it in the book. In Kingston, the trees were shedding icicles, endlessly clinking when they hit the ground, like the toasting of 100 wine glasses. By evening, the tinkling of broken icicles was accompanied by what sounded like shotgun blasts, 2 or 3 every minute. Tree limbs and entire trees were buckling under the weight of the ice. Outside, the night sky had an eerie green aura from the glow of chemicals burning in the hundreds of electrical transformers that had short-circuited or exploded. Take us back to that. You're standing there amidst all of this. What are you thinking?
I mean, it was just how, to me, it was how fragile our infrastructure is and how susceptible we were to these impactful climate events. We always see things like this happening to other people, and this was happening to us, and it was an overwhelming feeling to see this and think about, well, how much is this going to cost to fix all of this? You know, it was followed by nature's funny the way that it does this to us. It punishes us so severely, and then at the end there was a reward when the sun came out and everything was covered in an inch of ice. It looked beautiful. It was like you lived in this world of crystals. But what it was, like, the trees were all down. It was, you know, it was devastation that looked very pretty.
I know you said Kingston East to the Maritimes, but we've got a good chunk of it here too. I remember our power lines all froze up and then collapsed, and having the power crews come out at 2 a.m. because you got live wires on the streets, and they're very nervous about all of that stuff. But with the power down, you're in the reporting business. How did you report with no power?
Well, and that was it. You know, like the Weather Network was in Montreal at the time. The building we were in was the building that was used for the Olympics in 1976. So it was a building specifically designed for media to use. So they had generators, and they were able to use generators. But the trouble was, they run on diesel, but the power was out, so they couldn't pump diesel. So the length of time that anybody was going to be allowed to continue to broadcast was becoming limited because there was a scarcity of fuel as well. And to cover the story was difficult. You know, the people who were in Montreal at the Weather Network at the time, and I had radio friends too, people would move to other people's homes to share any heat, if they had heat in their house, or if you were one of the lucky ones who had electricity, to share electricity. So it took us from living in the 20th century right back to living in the 1800s again. And I think for a lot of people, it became this aha moment.
If I were to say these 2 words to you, what would they conjure up? The 2 words are the beast.
That fire in Fort McMurray changed me as an individual in how I covered weather, but also in how I viewed all of us as Canadians.
Should we take a look at this?
Yeah, for sure.
Sheldon, if you would, let's bring up that clip right now. Here's handheld footage of cars along the side of the road tracing the smoke plume from Fort McMurray. This is in May of 2016. And actually, I was thinking to myself, holy smokes, it is holy smokes.
It is.
Look at that.
And what would happen is, during the day, that plume of smoke would descend down to the surface. And this is where all of the reporters, they stopped us about 15 kilometers outside of Fort McMurray. Nobody could go in. They didn't want to have responsibility for it. It's, you know, a very normal thing in a disaster like that. But the media from around the world was there, and we were all in this line waiting for any kind of news. And there was nothing to cover. The fire was burning, and they were working on it. But the smoke would come down, and the air would become very acrid, and it would, have a sore throat after an hour and a half, 2 hours.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you about, because I've been in Northern Ontario when there have been raging forest fires, and even if you're 50 miles away from it, you have trouble breathing. You can feel it, you can smell it. Yeah. Do you have that problem as well?
Yeah, it was. I went through a lot of lozenges, and you drink a lot of water, but yeah, it was just there, and all I could think was, what's it like for the people who are fighting the fire? What are their conditions like? Because they're not only breathing this, but they're wearing their fire gear, and it was warm. I mean, the reason why that fire happened in Fort McMurray was climate change. They'd had the weather has been getting drier and drier and drier in Alberta every year since the 1940s. Temperatures in the winter haven't been getting as cold as they have been for the past 50 years. So they had a combination of a mild winter and a very dry winter. And so it was, when they went into the beginning of May, even April, they were already at extreme forest fire conditions in Alberta. So when this fire started, it was almost a fait accompli that some big fire would occur in Alberta. Unfortunately, this one happened near a major population center. 80,000 people plus lived in Fort McMurray at the time.
Not to put too fine a point on it, but I mean, the metaphor works here. It was a perfect storm. The conditions were a perfect storm for disaster.
Everything that could possibly line up to make this a disaster lined up to make it a disaster. And it was interesting. The reason Fort McMurray was so compelling was the fire came to life in the afternoon. And the stories in my book, my wife has been in the shopping center industry, and one of her colleagues worked at the shopping center, and my wife just likes to keep in touch with all of her friends in the business. And she wrote saying, I hope everything's okay. I know there's a fire burning near Fort McMurray. And he texted her back and said, yeah, everything's fine. The fire's, burning away from town. And he took a picture from the roof of Peter Pond Mall downtown in Fort McMurray. And my wife tweeted it to me and said, what about this? And I said, it should be okay. And an hour later, he tweeted a second picture, and the wind had changed, and the fire was bearing down on Fort McMurray itself. And that's when I sent a note to my boss saying, we need to get there quick.
We got to get there, yeah. The miracle of Fort McMurray is that nobody died. How did that happen?
I don't know how that happened. I mean, when we drove up to Fort McMurray, we arrived the day after, and the carnage along the highway out of Fort McMurray, there's only one road out, the main road. And it was eerie to drive on a 4-lane divided highway and have no other traffic at all. But you would see things as every 5 or 6 kilometers, you would see abandoned vehicles on the side of the road, or somebody's camper trailer was upside down in the median in the center, and obviously it had come off, or they decided to ditch it. But there was just these abandoned pieces of humanity along the road. It was really eerie to go there, and all you could smell was smoke.
When disaster strikes, people tend to react one of two ways, right? What did you see?
I saw people reacting fearfully, but when we flew into Edmonton the night of the fire, and we got to the hotel. We were going to stay overnight and head out first thing in the morning. The hotel was filled with people, mostly pickup trucks there, but they were all sitting outside drinking beers, and you could smell smoke. And it was the people that smelled like smoke, and they were all kind of decompressing, because I said, well, we'll rig up our camera and we'll interview some of these people. And most of them didn't want to talk. They just didn't want to talk about what had just happened to them, which was, the same images that we had all seen that day on social media, which was, people driving for their lives with fire and embers cascading on their vehicles as they drove out of town. And I think if that were you or I or anybody who had done that day, I don't think you'd want to talk. I mean, I think that the amount of emotion that was in you would be overwhelming. So they didn't want to talk. We were really wound up about the story, so we grabbed a nap and headed out. And first stop was Fort Saskatchewan, which is about 40 kilometers outside of Edmonton. We got there just as the sun was coming up. And all along the side of the road leading up to the drive-through at the Tim Hortons and the A&W were jerry cans with gasoline, and there were signs on them saying free, and then the hashtag YMM Strong, Alberta Strong, and the guy who was serving coffee at the drive-through just said, no, just take it, it's for you. And we went into town to the community center in Fort Saskatchewan, and it was already filled with donations, and people were just giving anything they had. The grocery store had come by and brought all of their disposable diapers. There was anything that you could imagine somebody who had nothing would need was there. And it was this enormous outpouring of generosity that it pulled on your heart, and it made you really proud to be a Canadian, but it just made you proud to be a citizen of humanity.
Nice. YMM, of course, the airport designation for Fort McMurray.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go to Florida. Florida constantly has hurricanes. Why?
They're ideally in the perfect location to have hurricanes. Hurricanes will form in the Atlantic or the Gulf of Mexico, and Florida being a peninsula, if they form in the Gulf of Mexico, a hurricane's natural tendency, as all storms is to drift in a northeasterly direction ultimately. There'll be variances to that, but ultimately that's because of the Coriolis effect, the way all weather moves on Earth is to the north and the east, towards the North Pole in the northern hemisphere. So anyway, if a storm forms in the Gulf of Mexico, there's a really good likelihood it will impact some part of western Florida or its panhandle. If a storm forms in the Atlantic or the Caribbean, there's a really high likelihood that it would impact from the Atlantic side of Florida. So they're in the perfect position. And Florida is particularly hard hit because there is no place in Florida that is more than 300 meters above sea level. So it's flat, and Florida's moist. There's a lot of swamps and water and lakes in Florida, which means that the surface is actually quite warm. So even if a hurricane does strike Florida, unlike hitting a mountainous area where it will have a tendency to begin to dissipate, it generally won't over Florida. It will maintain much of its integrity, and it's only 200 kilometers across the peninsula, so there's a good chance that a hurricane will do more damage in Florida than most other places it would strike.
Well, we have a picture here, and I'm going to show it to you, and then you're going to tell me what it evokes,
Sure.
okay? There we go. Look on the monitor up top there. What's that?
That's flooding. That's the other thing about Florida. We were there for Irma. And Irma had struck Florida, and it was the year that there was a parade of Category 4 and 5 hurricanes, which is unprecedented, that went through the Caribbean, and almost all of them followed the same path over the Lesser Antilles, Puerto Rico, Hispaniola, Cuba, and then up into the Gulf, and generally impactful for Florida. But there was a series of them that particular year. Just before Irma, in Florida, they had already had a tropical storm, which was just delivered a lot of rain. So the ground in Florida was completely saturated. So when Irma arrived with 200 more centimeters of rain.
And what year is this?
It's going to trick me, but it's 17 or 18, 2017, 18. There was just no way for the ground to absorb any more moisture.
How are you not terrified when you are reporting in those circumstances?
Well, I'm not a storm chaser, so I've gone to cover these storms with Mark Robinson, who is a storm chaser. But my idea of covering the story is to talk about the weather, but to talk about the human impact. But I don't particularly enjoy sitting in a truck in a parking garage to catch the strongest winds. It's not. I've done it. It's not my thing. But I particularly enjoy the human aspect to what's happening with weather, our reactions to it as individuals, government's reaction to how they look after us as people. My interest lies there as well as in the weather.
You've heard this expression before, storm porn, where reporters almost try to compete with one another to get out there in the most dangerous of circumstances and show them being buffeted all over the place. What do you think of that kind of stuff?
And that's, unfortunately, in much of today's media, a 10-second, nobody has time to watch a 15-second piece that takes too long. So it's sensationalism, unfortunately, and I think it's a real sad commentary that sensationalism like that is what people will spend their time doing. But again, in commercial media, so much of it is measured by dollars and clicks and all of that. And I think that sometimes the greater story, the more important story, isn't told because of the dramatics that go along with some of the storms.
Well, needless to say, it's phenomenally dangerous. And I'm sure we've all seen video of people out there doing a stand-up, reporters doing a stand-up in the middle of a storm, and all of a sudden a stop sign comes flying through the air and practically decapitates you, you know? Who wants that?
No, and it's interesting because as a meteorologist or as a weather presenter, you would be always issuing these guidances to people that you should be indoors, and yet they would be doing the exact opposite.
Okay, we're going to show you another picture here. Look at the monitor here in the studio. This is British Columbia, and that is 2021, so very recent. What are we looking at here?
That's a pyroclastic cloud. It's much like a thunderstorm cloud, but it's comprised of smoke, particles of ash. Also, because the fire is burning, it is evaporating any moisture into the atmosphere. The ones during the fires in the interior of British Columbia in that year, some of them were in excess of 35,000 feet high in the atmosphere. So if you fly a commercial flight Toronto to Vancouver, you would be flying at 37,000 feet. So that's how high up these clouds were going. And that was just the heat from the fires propelling the debris that high into the atmosphere.
Looks like a bomb went off.
It does. It looks like, and when you look at the damage after those fires, it's like somebody had detonated a hydrogen bomb.
you know, it's terrifying on the one hand, but on the other hand, do you ever find yourself in those circumstances where you look at it and you say, it's actually, I mean, there's a beauty to it as well?
There's a stark beauty to what nature can do. When you watch palm trees shedding their fronds, there's a beauty to that. When you look at these giant plumes of smoke from forest fires, there's a beauty to it. Even I was covering fires in 2012 or 13 in British Columbia near Pemberton, and we were driving the valley from Pemberton towards Lillooet, and there were you could see the fires burning on the sides of the hills, and you knew that it was, it was a disaster, but it looked beautiful. There was a beauty to it.
Mm-hmm. Let's do another picture here, Sheldon, if you would, top of page 5. British Columbia again, and this time not blowing up, but underwater. How well are folks like you getting, or how good are you getting at forecasting when these kinds of things can happen?
You know, what happened, that was the atmospheric river that came after the summer heat dome, which was well forecast, and then after the record-breaking heat, which was just slightly under forecast, and then the atmospheric river, which was it's a very seasonal, typical thing on the West Coast, that was really well forecast as well. Unfortunately, British Columbia got all three of those things in one year, and it proved beyond a shadow of a doubt how susceptible we are to a changing climate in Canada. I mean, we had the heat in the summer where we were the hottest place on Earth for a time at nearly 50 degrees Celsius. We had the raging fires, which were so hot that they actually turned the soil. They changed the chemical makeup of the soil to almost a glass-like structure. And then when the rain came, the soil actually repelled the water, which led to the flooding in the valleys in British Columbia. And that flooding cut off the access to the busiest port in Canada to the rest of the country. And it showed how susceptible we are to an interruption in our supply chain in an event across the country.
Chris, I know from having read the book that you see part of your mission, or you have seen part of your mission, as sort of representing all of the world's scientists who have been warning us for a couple of decades, at least, that climate change is real, we are responsible for it, and we need to solve it. I wonder how depressed you get when you have to run up against reality that not that many people appear to be all that fussed about it.
I know it's difficult. I mean, there are so many positives in the climate change story, but it's cloaked in so many negatives. On the positive, there's people like Greta Thunberg who have inspired younger people. In my book, I tell a story in the epilogue about how I've interviewed David Suzuki numerous times, and the last time I interviewed him in 2019. And David was getting grumpier and grumpier every time I talked to him. And he said, the first thing he said when I shook his hand, he said, I don't even know why we're doing this. Nobody is paying attention to anything. But the first time I interviewed David was at the ROM in 2002, perhaps. And we did the interview in front of a bunch of grade 3 and 4 students who were probably a little too young for the subject matter. But David was talking about climate change, and they were actually interested in what he was talking about because he was using language that was pretty comprehensible, and he was talking about what happens when the Arctic thaws. And the kids, they bought into it. And so the upside is those kids who are in grade 3 and 4 in 2002 are voters now, and they know that it's all real, and they know that we have to do things. And people are pushing that things be done for climate. They're pushing their government, but they're also pushing business and industry to take responsibility. Before, it seemed to be all the responsibility was on the back of you and I, just regular citizens, but all of us are in on this.
In our last minute here, I want to ask you a bit of an odd personal question, if I can.
Sure.
And that is, you have made your living for a long time in a strange kind of way, well, I should ask, somewhat hopeful that things get awful, because when things get awful, weather-wise, you're a big star, and people pay attention. Is that an odd conundrum to find yourself in?
It's a really odd. I mean, every time we had a storm, it was always, this is our Grey Cup. This will be our Stanley Cup. So it was a bizarre place to be. That, you know, if the weather was bad, then it was great to work because certainly the ratings would go up. It's too bad, but it was interesting.
It was more than interesting. Well, you've captured it very well in your new book. It's called Weather Permitting. What else would you call it? That's a great title. 25 years of ice storms, hurricanes, wildfires, and extreme climate change in Canada. And it has brought Chris St. Clair to our studio. Chris, so good to meet you, and thanks so much.
Oh, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
The Agenda with Steve Paikin is made possible through generous philanthropic contributions from viewers like you. Thank you for supporting TVO's journalism.